You know, I got into politics 4 years ago, 2008. I looked around and I saw that our country was in trouble. You know, these Republicans that I had voted for had made bad decisions that, you know, got me passionate. It got me ready to just see that we needed a change in this country. I had historically voted Republican, and I've always been conservative, but I thought, you know, here's a guy I put into the presidency, George W. Bush, and I said, you know what, this guy, I thought he was conservative, and he's not. You know, I thought Bob Corker was a conservative. I voted for him. He's not.
Sure.
You know, I stand up on principle, and I stand on truth, and I stand on integrity. And these guys, I thought they had it, and they didn't. I thought they had passion, but they didn't. You know, so while I looked around, I thought, what are we going to do? Who are we going to elect? You know, the Democrat, they usually don't represent me socially. They're big government. The Republicans now are supposed to be conservative, but they're big government. And I thought, we need a candidate that's going to stand on truth. We need a candidate that's going to have integrity. And that guy is me. I'm the guy that's going to stand on the truth and have integrity. And so I'm standing before you today saying that you've got a chance to vote for a liberty-minded candidate that's going to turn this country around. We can make a statement in Washington this year if you'll vote for me, if you'll get behind me and do a grassroots effort. You know, Bob Corker 4 years ago voted for the big banker bailout. They gave $700 billion of my money, your kids' money, and your grandkids' money to failed big banks and insurance companies. That really upset me. And it should upset you, because that's big government at its worst. And then 2 years later, we sent a bill to the United States Senate to audit the Federal Reserve. How do you think Mr. Corker voted?
He voted no.
He voted to not audit the Federal Reserve. He voted to keep your money a secret from you that he spent. So last year, one of my big three things against Corker: one, the big banker bailout; two, he voted to not audit the Federal Reserve. And the third thing is he voted for the National Defense Authorization Act, which says in sections 1021 and 1022 that any U.S. citizen that commits a belligerent act can be arrested by our military and held indefinitely without a trial, without a lawyer, without a phone call.
There goes America.
That kind of legislation is dangerous. It destroys the Constitution. It destroys our Bill of Rights within the Constitution. It is an attack against us. It's a dangerous legislation. It's got to be repealed. Without repealing it, we're in trouble if we don't do that. So Bob Corker has voted against the U.S. Constitution the last 6 years 40% of the time. He has agreed with Barack Obama 61% of the time. So he calls himself conservative. I don't agree. How can he be conservative when he does that? So we've got to get rid of Obama because he's big government. We've got to get rid of Corker because he's big government. And this is the year we can do it. You know, we have a few people here today. Tomorrow we can have the streets full. This is an End the Fed rally. That's one of my big things. When you elect me as your next U.S. Senator, I'm going to go up to Washington and I'm going to audit the Federal Reserve, a full audit of the Federal Reserve. Not just a partial audit, but a whole audit. And I don't want to do it like Mr. Corker. He's already said, well, we need to get the General Accounting Office to do it, the GAO. The GAO is not who we need. We need 7 independent accounting firms that are private organizations that have full accountability and full security. Because guess what? When you do a full comprehensive audit of the Federal Reserve, you're going to have so much intimidation and threatening that they need to be protected. So that's the kind of audit we need. We need 7 independent private organizations to fully audit the Federal Reserve. And then once they fully audit the Federal Reserve, what are they going to find out? What have y'all already talked about? Have y'all talked about the history of the Fed yet? Already talked about that? The Federal Reserve is a private bank. There's no way that we're going to find out who are those private ownerships. We're going to find out how much they devalue our currency, how much money they always print. And when we find that out, we're going to find fraudulent activity, and what's going to end up happening?
We're going to have to shut down under the way of their own hypocrisy. That's right.
It's going to be fully investigated then, and those private owners that own it are going to be in trouble.
They can kick the Rothschilds out of America.
The sunshine's going to hit them vampires, they're going to explode.
A full audit of the Federal Reserve will end the Fed, and that's exactly what we need. We need the Fed to be ended right now.
That's right. Right now.
We need it to go away.
That's right.
And so you guys are the ones that can do it, because you have a voice, and your voice is very important, and you standing out here today is encouraging for everybody. And even though the streets aren't full yet, they can be full soon. If you will just continue and persevere in what you're doing, we can fully audit this Fed. We can get out of central banking. Ron Paul, in his book, In the Fed, at the end of it, he said a very important sentence. He said, freedom, I got one copy already, but thank you, I'll hold it up, In the Fed. In the back of this book, he says, freedom and central banking are incompatible. They don't work together.
Right.
It is impossible, because if you have a central banking system, it by definition wants to enslave you to the financial institutions. And that's not freedom, folks. And we need independence. We need to declare our independence again. We need freedom from the slavery of the bank system. And the Federal Reserve is right at the top of that. And you guys can do it. And your voice is very important. So I appreciate y'all coming out today. I appreciate you allowing me to speak.
We appreciate you.